a cold winter night, the city is blanketed in thick layers of snow. The streets are empty, with only a few scattered lights from distant windows flickering through the foggy air. The wind bites through the silence, carrying with it the chill of the season. A homeless man named Adam, dressed in ragged clothes and a torn blanket, sits huddled on the sidewalk near a street corner. His face is pale, his beard unkempt, and his eyes are dull from exhaustion. He wraps the tattered blanket tighter around himself, but it does little to protect him from the bitter cold that seems to seep deep into his bones. His teeth chatter as he pulls his knees closer to his chest, trying to conserve what little warmth he can. The streets are deserted, with only the occasional car passing by, its headlights briefly illuminating the area before vanishing into the night. People rush past, heads down, coats pulled tight, lost in their own worlds. They don't see Adam. They don't notice the man sitting there, barely surviving in the harsh winter night. His existence has faded into the background, a ghost among the city's bustling life. It's as though he's invisible to everyone around him, a forgotten soul in a world that has moved on without him. Nearby, at a bus stop, a young woman named Sophia waits for the next bus to take her home. She's visibly shivering, her breath visible in the cold air, as she wraps her scarf tighter around her neck. Her coat is thick, but even it can't seem to shield her from the relentless cold. The gloves she's wearing are thin, hardly enough to keep her fingers warm, and every few seconds she pulls them out of her pockets to rub them together, trying to revive some feeling in them. Her eyes are distant, lost in thought, her mind preoccupied with the events of the day. She's tired, exhausted, and the icy wind only makes her feel more worn out. The sound of the distant traffic, the occasional honking of a horn, and the hum of the city are all muffled by the blanket of snow that has covered everything. It's as though the city is in a deep slumber, everyone wrapped in their own bubble of warmth and comfort, oblivious to the cold world outside. Sophia doesn't notice Adam at first. She's too focused on the passing moments, waiting for her ride to appear. But as she shifts from one foot to the other, trying to keep her circulation moving, her eyes briefly flicker toward the sidewalk. She notices the man sitting there, barely able to keep himself upright against the cold, his face gaunt and pale, his eyes sunken and tired. Her heart tugs at the sight. She looks away quickly, trying to shake off the unease that creeps up her spine. But it doesn't go away. The image of the homeless man stays with her, lingering in her mind. She turns back to look at him again, her gaze lingering a little longer this time. She wonders if he's cold, if he has any place to go, or if he's been sitting there for hours, struggling to survive the night. Adam's eyes meet Sophia's for a brief moment, and he gives a faint, weary smile. He doesn't expect anyone to notice him, but there's something in the young woman's expression that catches his attention. She seems different from the others who rush by, indifferent to his presence. Sophia looks away quickly, but something stirs inside her. She pulls out her phone to check the time, and as she does, she notices the bus in the distance, slowly making its way toward the stop. The light from the headlights gleams through the snow, casting long shadows on the ground. She glances back at Adam, her eyes softening as she watches him. It's clear he's not just cold, he's alone. She's never seen him before, but she wonders how long he's been there, how many nights he's spent without warmth, without shelter. The bus pulls up to the stop with a soft screech of brakes, and the doors open. The warmth from inside rushes out to meet her, and she steps toward the door, but she hesitates. The moment stretches out as she looks back at Adam, still sitting there in the cold. The bus driver glances at her, waiting for her to board, but Sophia doesn't move. Her hand still rests on the handle of her purse, her mind racing. She thinks of the warmth she will soon step into, the home she'll return to, where there will be food, a bed, and safety. And then she thinks of Adam. Her heart beats faster as guilt begins to settle in. She can't just walk away. She can't leave him there alone in the cold. She looks at the bus driver, then back at Adam. The bus driver honks the horn, impatient, and the noise makes her jump. Sophia steps onto the bus, her footsteps heavy as the doors close behind her. She sits by the window, but she can't shake the image of the homeless man from her mind. The bus starts moving, the wheels crunching over the snow-covered roads, and yet, all she can think of is Adam, sitting there alone in the winter night. She tells herself that it's not her responsibility, that there's nothing she can do for him. But her heart doesn't listen. The image of his tired eyes, his shivering body, his solitary existence continues to haunt her. As the bus moves farther away, she pulls her coat tighter around herself. But it doesn't help. The cold she feels now isn't from the outside world, it's the cold inside her. She feels a weight settle over her chest, a feeling of helplessness that she can't shake. She wants to turn back, to do something, but the bus carries her further away from Adam, from that moment, and she knows deep down that it will be another long winter night for him. Meanwhile, Adam remains where he is, his eyes heavy with fatigue, his body struggling to hold on against the cold. He's used to the indifference of others, used to being overlooked and ignored. But tonight, something inside him stirs. He doesn't know if it's the sight of Sophia or just the weariness of too many nights spent alone in the cold, but for the first time in a long while, he feels seen. Even if it's only for a moment, even if she doesn't stop, there's a connection, however brief. And for that moment, it feels like there's a chance. As the snow continues to fall, the city remains silent, but the lives of two people, strangers, are forever altered by the simple, fleeting moments of connection in a world that often forgets. Adam's eyes, worn and heavy with exhaustion, flicker over to Sophia again. This time, something in the way she shivers sends a wave of recognition through him. He watches as she rubs her hands together, trying to summon some warmth from the air that seems to cut deeper with every passing second. His own body, a weathered skeleton wrapped in tattered clothes, feels the biting chill of the night, yet in the pit of his stomach, something stirs, something deep and aching. He looks down at his own ragged blanket, the one that barely covers him and does little to protect him from the sharp claws of the winter air. His fingers tighten around the frayed edges, and for a moment, he wonders if he should stay in his own world of quiet suffering. He thinks about the coldness of the street, the loneliness that he has learned to endure night after night. He's survived this long, hasn't he? What difference would it make to continue hiding from the world? But then, he looks back at her. Sophia's face is pale, her eyes glassy with the cold, and the snow around her slowly coats her shoes and coat in a thin layer of frost. The bus has long since arrived, and she hasn't moved, still sitting there, vulnerable to the elements. Adam's breath catches in his throat. His chest tightens with the weight of the decision, the cost of his choice. What can he do for her? He looks down at the blanket again. The tiny, tattered piece of cloth he's clung to for warmth all this time. It's the last thing he has, and yet in this moment, he feels its inadequacy. Could he really offer it to her? Could he give up what little comfort he has to someone else, someone he's never met? He hesitates, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion, fear, and an overwhelming desire to do something, to be something other than invisible, in a world that's long forgotten him. He breathes deeply, and in that instant, a quiet resolve settles within him. This is bigger than his own suffering. There is something about this night, something about this young woman who shivers in front of him, that calls to him. He could feel his heart beat stronger now, louder in his chest as if urging him to move. Slowly, he pushes himself to his feet, the cold air biting at his exposed skin. His knees creak as they take his weight, but still, he walks towards Sophia. His footsteps are soft in the snow, each step a question, a plea for the universe to make sense of this moment. He doesn't speak. Words feel so unnecessary in this space. There is only the heavy silence, the unspoken truth of what needs to be done. When he reaches her, Sophia doesn't look up immediately. She's lost in her own world, her mind too tangled in the cold to realize someone is standing before her. Adam watches her for a heartbeat longer. Her eyes, empty of warmth, look as if they've already given up on the world, resigned to the reality of this night, of this life. His hands shake slightly, but he doesn't stop. He drapes his thin, ragged blanket over her shoulders. The contact is brief, but it's enough to send a surge of warmth between them. The blanket, a meager thing, feels like a lifeline to both of them. Sophia looks up, startled by the sudden gesture, her gaze meeting Adam's for the first time. Her eyes widen, and for a moment, the world slows. The sound of the city, the passing cars, the blizzard around them, all of it fades into the background. In that space, it's just them. Two strangers, bound together by the quiet act of kindness. Adam smiles, though it's small, his lips trembling from the cold, his face worn and pale. It's not a smile of joy, but a smile of something deeper, something only understood in moments like this. You need this more than I do. Adam's voice is soft, rough with exhaustion, but there's a calmness in it. His words are simple, but they carry the weight of his sacrifice. Kindness isn't about how much we have, it's about what we can give. The words hang between them, fragile and powerful all at once. Sophia blinks, her breath catching in her throat as she stares at him, unable to fully comprehend the gesture. Her hands tremble as she reaches for the blanket, pulling it tighter around her shoulders, but her eyes never leave his. She feels the sudden shift inside her, the warmth that isn't just from the blanket but from something deeper, more intangible. She tries to speak, but her throat tightens. What can she say? What could ever be enough in the face of this unspoken understanding? Adam steps back, his eyes now avoiding hers, suddenly feeling exposed. He's done what he could, and that's all he has. No one owes him anything, and for a moment he feels something he hasn't felt in a long time: peace. For a fleeting second, the emptiness that has lived in him for so long feels a little lighter. Sophia finally finds her voice, but it's soft, barely above a whisper. "Thank you," she says, her voice breaking slightly. Her gaze flickers between his eyes and the blanket that now rests around her shoulders. "I don't know how I can." "You don't need to," Adam interrupts gently, his smile fading into something more distant now. "Kindness is the one thing that doesn't need repayment." With that, Adam turns, his feet dragging through the snow as he begins to walk away. His heart feels heavier, but somehow, it's also full. He's given something, no matter how small, to someone else. And that, for tonight, is enough. Sophia watches him go, a quiet sadness settling in her chest. She doesn't call out to him. She doesn't chase after him. She simply watches as the man who gave her warmth disappears into the night, leaving behind only the trace of his kindness in the snow. The bus arrives at that moment, and as the doors open, Sophia steps onto it, the blanket wrapped around her like a shield against the world. But inside, something has changed. She's no longer just waiting for the warmth of home. She carries something deeper now, something that will stay with her long after the snow melts. The memory of a kindness that she will never forget. Sophia stares at Adam, her eyes wide with disbelief, as the warmth of the blanket settles around her shoulders. She can feel the sudden surge of gratitude mixed with confusion. She pulls it tighter around her, but the weight of the moment bears down on her like a storm. She tries to find the words to express what she's feeling, but they fail her. Her breath catches in her throat, and she blinks hard as though waking from a dream. "Wait," she calls out, her voice trembling. You're giving this to me?" Adam looks at her, his face unreadable, the cold winds tugging at his clothes. His eyes meet hers with quiet understanding. He doesn't speak immediately, letting her words hang in the air for a moment. He's not interested in her gratitude. He never was. For him, this moment, this fleeting kindness, is simply about giving what little he has to offer. "You need it more than I do," he says softly, his voice barely audible over the wind. "Kindness isn't about how much we have, it's about what we can give." Sophia opens her mouth to protest, but before she can find the right words, Adam takes a step back, his eyes avoiding hers. The expression on his face shifts. He's done what he could. There's no need for thanks. No need for anything else. He doesn't want to explain himself. Doesn't need to justify his actions. He simply turns and walks away, his steps echoing in the cold silence of the street. Sophia watches him go, her heart heavy. She wants to stop him, to insist that he take the blanket back. She wants to understand why he would give her something that means so little to him, but so much to her. She watches his figure disappear into the shadows, swallowed by the night. He's gone, vanished into the same silence he's always lived in. And in that moment, she feels the depth of his gesture. The bus arrives, and the doors slide open. But Sophia doesn't get on. Instead, she stands there, clutching the blanket, her mind spinning. Why did he do it? Why would a stranger, someone so obviously struggling, offer her something so precious? The question gnaws at her. But there's no answer. Only the cold, biting night and the stillness that follows Adam's departure. The next morning, Adam awakens on the same street corner, the blanket now discarded beside him. He blinks against the bright sunlight, his eyes squinting as the first rays of dawn cut through the icy haze of the night. His bones ache and his stomach growls with hunger, but he doesn't move. He can't move. His body is too weary, too accustomed to this lonely existence. The sound of a car approaching catches his attention. The engine hums softly, the tires crunching through the snow. He looks up, confused by the sudden disturbance. A sleek, black car pulls up in front of him, the engine purring to a stop. For a moment, Adam wonders if he's imagining it, but the vehicle is real, too real to be a figment of his mind. The door opens, and out steps Sophia, looking nothing like the shivering woman from the night before. Gone is the disheveled, cold figure huddled in the bus stop. Instead, she is tall, confident, and impeccably dressed in a sharp coat, heels clicking on the pavement as she steps toward him. Her posture is poised, her face calm and composed, with a smile that radiates warmth. Adam blinks, confused. This isn't the woman he remembers. "Why are you here?" he asks, his voice hoarse from sleep. There's no malice in his tone, just pure bewilderment. He looks at her, trying to process what he's seeing. The woman who had shivered in the cold, who had barely held on to the blanket he had given her, is now standing before him, like someone from a completely different world. Sophia smiles, the same smile from the night before, but now it feels different, like it holds a secret. A promise. Something more than just politeness. She takes a step closer to him, her heels clicking sharply on the street as she stands before him. Adam stands up slowly, his back stiff, unsure of what to make of this surreal moment. Sophia opens her mouth, her voice gentle but carrying a weight of mystery. "I'm not just any woman, Adam." His eyes narrow slightly. How does she know his name? He doesn't recognize her, but there's something about the way she speaks, so calm, so certain, that unnerves him. She watches him carefully, her eyes glimmering with something hidden beneath the surface, something that takes him a moment to fully understand. "I'm an actress," she reveals, her voice smooth, like silk slipping through his fingers. Adam blinks, his confusion growing. An actress? He's met people from all walks of life, but this doesn't make sense. He looks at her, searching for any sign of a trick, a joke. There's none. She's not wearing a costume, not acting out a role. This is real. And then she adds, her smile widening just slightly. "And today, your kindness is coming back to you." For a moment, Adam can't breathe. His chest tightens, and the words hang in the air like a puzzle he can't solve. The woman he thought was just another passerby, someone who didn't even acknowledge him last night, wasn't just anyone. She wasn't just a stranger in need of warmth. She was someone who had seen him, someone who understood what it meant to give, without asking for anything in return. Someone who knew that his act of kindness wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was something that had meaning. A meaning she was about to reveal. Before Adam can say anything, the door of the car opens again. A man steps out, dressed in a sharp suit, holding a briefcase. He smiles at Adam, then at Sophia, a look of admiration in his eyes. Behind him, a camera crew steps out of the vehicle, setting up for something Adam can't yet grasp. Sophia turns to him, her eyes full of warmth. "This is your moment," she says. "Your kindness, it's going to change everything." And in that instant, Adam realizes the truth. He was never invisible. Not really. He was seen, and in that seeing, his life was about to shift in a way he could never have imagined. Sophia's hand is steady as she guides Adam into the warm, luxurious interior of the hotel. The moment they step inside, the heat hits him like a wave, a stark contrast to the biting cold he's known for so long. Adam's body tenses as he steps over the threshold, unsure of what to do with this sudden abundance of warmth. He's been freezing for so long that this comfort feels foreign to him. His worn-out shoes shuffle on the polished marble floor, and he looks around in disbelief. The lobby is pristine, bright lights reflecting off gleaming surfaces, a far cry from the cracked sidewalks and dim street corners he's used to. Sophia leads him to a suite, elegant, pristine, and utterly out of place for someone like him. The thick carpet feels like clouds under his feet, and the air smells of fresh flowers and a fragrance he can't place. He stands there in the doorway, paralyzed, unsure if he's even allowed to be in such a place. His eyes dart around, soaking in the foreign luxury, and for a moment the world seems to stop spinning. This is too much. Too good. Sophia steps forward, her voice soft but firm. "You're here to change, Adam. You deserve this." She leads him to the bathroom, where towels warm on a heated rack, and the scent of soap and shampoo fills the air. The shower, gleaming and inviting, stands like a promise in front of him. She hands him a pair of thick, soft towels, motioning toward the bathroom. "You've earned a real chance. Take a shower. I'll be waiting for you." Adam stands still for a moment, staring at her, trying to absorb everything. His mind races, but the words just won't come. He's been so cold, so hungry, so invisible for so long that he's forgotten what it feels like to be seen, to be offered something with no strings attached. A wave of gratitude, disbelief, and something else, something far deeper, begins to surge within him. He nods slowly, his throat tight, and enters the bathroom. As the hot water pours over his body, Adam closes his eyes and lets the steam and heat envelop him. It feels like something he's never experienced, a feeling he never thought he would deserve. The dirt and grime of countless nights on the street wash away, and with each drop of water, he can almost feel himself shedding the skin of his former life. It's like he's becoming someone else, someone he's always longed to be but never thought possible. When he emerges from the bathroom, he's met with something even more surreal. The clothes laid out on the bed are not rags or hand-me-downs. They are new, pressed, perfect. A suit, black and sleek, the fabric soft to the touch. The shirt beneath is crisp and white, the tie folded neatly beside it. The shoes are polished to a shine. He stands in front of the mirror, his reflection almost unrecognizable. The man staring back at him is not the gaunt, tired figure he's seen for years. This man has life in his eyes. He runs his hands over the clean suit, unsure of what to do with it, with himself. He doesn't recognize the man in the mirror. The eyes staring back at him are full of something he hasn't seen in a long time: hope. Sophia stands in the doorway, watching him with a quiet smile. She steps inside and hands him a small, thin envelope, the kind that holds secrets and promises. Adam takes it with trembling hands, the weight of it in his palm feeling so heavy, so unfamiliar. She looks at him, her eyes shining with something that speaks of deeper understanding, something he can't quite grasp yet. "Open it," she says simply. With hesitant fingers, Adam tears open the envelope. Inside, there's a document. It's thick, official, and his name is typed at the top. For a moment, he stares at it blankly. His mind won't process it. He holds it up to the light, as though the words on the paper might change or shift. It doesn't make sense. A house deed, his name. Sophia steps closer, her voice gentle but filled with a quiet certainty. "This is your new home, Adam. No more cold nights on the streets, no more wondering where you'll sleep or when you'll eat. You have a place now." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. His hands tremble as he grips the paper, the reality of it settling slowly into his bones. A house. His house. Sophia watches him closely, her expression warm but serious. "You've given enough to others without asking for anything in return. You've shown what real kindness is, and now it's your turn." Adam's mind spins, the gravity of the moment crashing down on him. He opens his mouth to speak, but the words lodge in his throat. His eyes sting, and before he can stop it, tears begin to gather in his eyes, blurring his vision. For a moment, he's not sure if he's dreaming, if this is some kind of cruel joke. He blinks, wipes his eyes, but the reality doesn't shift. It's still there, the deed, the key, his new home. Sophia doesn't rush him. She doesn't fill the silence with empty words. She simply watches him, letting him process what's happening. The weight of his past, the years of hardship, of cold, of being invisible, feels like it's melting away, replaced with something far more powerful: possibility. Adam finally looks up, his voice breaking as he whispers, I don't know what to say." Sophia smiles again, her eyes soft. "You don't have to say anything, just live, Adam. Live with the knowledge that someone sees you, someone believes in you. This is yours, all of it." The tears fall freely now, but they're different tears of release, of gratitude, of a burden finally lifted. Adam's hands clutch the envelope and key tighter, but they feel lighter than they've ever been. For the first time in what feels like forever, he breathes deeply, fully, without the weight of the past dragging him down. "This is real," he whispers, more to himself than to her. Sophia nods gently. "It's real, and it's yours." For a long time, Adam doesn't move, as if waiting for the world to spin again to tell him that this is just a fleeting dream. But it doesn't. He's here, in this moment. A man with a name, a house, and a future. And as he looks at Sophia, her quiet strength, her kindness that changed everything he knows, without a doubt that his life has just begun anew. Sophia's offer still lingers in the air, echoing in Adam's mind like a distant melody. The idea of a job, a real job, something steady, something that could give him a future, seems too perfect, too far-fetched. He clutches the envelope tighter, as if he might lose the very thing that has already started to change his life. He looks down at the small key in his hand, its edges sharp, its weight now a symbol of something greater than he could have ever imagined. He hadn't asked for this. In fact, he hadn't even dared to dream of it. His life had been so full of survival, of enduring day after day on the streets, that the thought of having a future seemed like an impossibility. But now, here he is, with a home, a job, and a life that is finally his to shape. The weight of it is almost too much to carry. Sophia's words repeat in his mind, resonating with something deep inside him. Kindness is a cycle. Those words, so simple yet so profound, begin to settle in his heart. He'd given what little he had, a thin, ragged blanket, to a stranger who had been cold, but he hadn't done it to expect something in return. It had just felt right, just felt like the thing he was supposed to do. Now in this moment, he realizes that the kindness he had shown had been returned to him in the most unexpected way. He turns his eyes to the house in front of him. It's not just a building, it's a symbol. A symbol of what could happen when one person chooses to act with compassion, when they reach out and help another without hesitation. It's a beacon of the possibilities that lie ahead, a place where he can finally rebuild, where he can find peace and purpose. Sophia's car is still parked in front of the house, the engine running quietly in the background. She had given him this chance, but she hadn't just offered him a home or a job. She had given him back his dignity, his belief that he was worthy of something better, something more than the cold, empty nights he'd spent wandering the streets. She had made him believe in the goodness of people again. As the evening draws in, the once warm sunlight begins to fade, leaving the sky painted in soft hues of pink and purple. The stars begin to appear one by one, like little dots of hope scattered across the sky. Adam stands there, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his new coat, just taking it all in. His chest feels lighter than it ever has, and his heart swells with a quiet gratitude he doesn't know how to express. For the first time in a long time, he feels like he belongs. He feels like he matters. He looks down at the key again, the weight of it pressing into his palm. A small, simple object, but one that signifies so much more. It's a key to his future, a future that he can now take hold of, a future that will no longer be dictated by the cold winds or the long, lonely nights on the streets. It will be shaped by his choices, his work, his determination to not let this gift slip through his fingers. As the night settles around him, Adam steps forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He walks into the house, the door opening easily with the key in his hand. Inside, everything is new, fresh, clean, and waiting for him. The silence of the house is soothing, like it's inviting him to finally rest, to let go of the years of pain, of hardship. He takes a deep breath, absorbing the scent of the room, the warmth of the air. It feels like a dream that's somehow come true. He glances back one last time at the sky, the stars now fully visible above him, the night as still as his thoughts. He knows that nothing in his life will ever be the same again. He knows that the kindness he gave had returned to him tenfold, and it had changed everything. As he closes the door behind him, he takes one final look at the house, his house, and smiles. Inside, the future awaits, and he knows that from this moment forward, he will never be the same man who once sat alone on the street corner, shivering in the cold. He's not that man anymore. He's someone new, someone who believes in the power of kindness, in the power of a good deed, and in the hope that a single act can change the course of a life. The screen slowly fades to black, the last image lingering in the viewer's mind. Never underestimate the power of a good deed. It might come back to you in the most unexpected way. And as the screen darkens, the message settles into the heart, echoing long after the story ends.